and Beastmode podcast, where we discuss all things business, including growth, strategy, and execution, as well as personal and professional development. Let's join Howie and Beastmode in conversation.
What is up, Beastmode? It's nice to see you there.
Yeah, just enjoying some time by the fire. Got some stockings hung up and just ready to get going tonight.
That Santa hat that is behind you is almost under over your head. So you could, now you're Santa. So that's really good. Yeah, well, it's nice to talk with you. We are actually recording two tonight because we are going to take a week off in the near future here. So with the holiday, so it's nice. The first podcast that we're going to record though is that your worst issues can actually help you.
Yeah,
that's the idea. Maybe we'll come up with a better title, but as far as when we post it, but your worst issues can actually help you. So there's kind of two key areas we want to sort of rap about back and forth. There's business issues and customer issues. So why don't I let you kind of go forward? You're a business owner. You're also the owner and founder of a nonprofit. What is it that you see in terms of running a business or running a nonprofit, as far as how do you become aware of new business problems that you should be addressing?
Yeah, this is kind of a funny example, but one of the things that I've seen just in my time as a business owner, nonprofit founder, as you said, is that it's really easy to do. To use an old reference, do you remember the movie Big Daddy with Adam Sandler?
Yeah.
And so the kid, I don't remember what his name was, but he would have some form of an accident. He would spill milk or he would wet the bed or whatever. And Adam Sandler would just pull newspaper out and just cover the problem. And I think so many of us in business do the exact same thing. Maybe if I just put some newspaper over this problem with this employee, or maybe if I just put over this issue with scheduling or production or output, that it'll just magically go away or it'll get soaked up in the newspaper and I don't have to worry about it. But that is not it. There's an opportunity to say, here's a problem. That's okay. But I'm going to invest this problem to not only get rid of this problem, to get rid of future problems. And that's what we hope to talk about tonight.
I love it. I'm pretty excited about this because this goes into, I'm kind of a process nerd. And so this kind of goes into triggers for improving a business process. So I'll give you one right now. So when I was at IntelliMagic, which is where I was until COVID happened, I was a VP of sales there, a small team. I had 7 people and I reported to a title a lot like a president for the Americas. It's called a managing director, but people don't know what that means. It's like a president of Americas. And what we had was for years, we have a very complex product. It's the best product in the industry actually. But it's very complex. So pricing it can be kind of complex, right? So what I would find is that I would take a deal from one of my team members and I would, have an idea of how to price it. I would go into the office of my managing director and I would, work together with him to get it, sort of like restructure it and get it all figured out and answer his questions, right? In order to get an approval, which we would then share back to the customer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the problem. I went into his office. This is December 2018. I went into his office. He asked me a question. I didn't know the answer to that. I went back to my desk and I figured that answer out. And then I came back to him with this, the same workup, but now I've got that extra answer. And he asked me another question, right? I didn't know the answer to that either. So I went back to my desk. This took literally hours because I'm having to go research these questions that I didn't know I had to ask the customer, or I didn't know I had to go research internally or whatever they were. It's been too long. I don't remember. All I remember is there's a massive switching cost when your employees come into your office and there's a concern or they have a need and you send them back, okay, instead of a one-stop shop approach. So what I did was it was causing me pain, right? Obviously. Mm-hmm. By the way, nicest company ever, for sure. And the nicest leader ever. So they weren't doing anything wrong. I just didn't know. I was a little bit newer. I didn't know the answers to these really technical questions or detailed process questions or whatever. And so I was having to go figure that out. So what I decided to do, and I still have a copy, if people want, we'll tell you how to get a hold of us at the end. I can send you my little example because I found it today. But I literally created a little questionnaire for sales reps. And it was little drop downs and little things, little auto calculator, it'll like calculate the price. If you put in, they need this much coverage, then it'll cost that much and all that. And so so what happened is I took all the questions that he was asking me and I just turned them into a process sheet, right? And that allowed me to go back to him one time, one-stop shopping, every question he could possibly answer, and everything that because I put myself in his shoes as a business, I made myself an owner, and I tried to think like him. And I thought, not only what is he literally asking me, but what else should I be asking about the business, right? And because if you're going to have a process sheet, you might as well have the best process sheet ever. And so I came back to him and it literally stopped the back and forth. From then on, for the rest of my time there, it really stopped that. And it gave us this option for especially for complex deals where we could use that. Now I'm going to go in there. We have a little 10-minute meeting. He's got a really nice understanding. And to be honest with you, sometimes I'd email that in advance and it was kind of like a non-meeting at that point, right? And that's what you got to do but the thing is, they had walked by that for years for understandable. Listen, they're all insiders. They've been doing it. I think he had been there 12 years when I got hired. So for him, it was just warm water. He knew the answers. He was used to it. But me as a new person having to learn it, it was very, very painful. So so I guess I'm going to kick this back to the audience piece mode. And I'm going to say, is there any process where you're having those symptoms? Remember, here's the symptoms. Number one, you're having to go ask something, go ask for approval. Okay. And by the way, can you get rid of that even? Think about that. Are there things that require unnecessary approvals that are routine in your company where you could delegate trust down to your employees and just let them approve it? Do you understand? Number one, check. Should it even involve approval process? Number two, check. Are there round robins happening? That's not really a good word for it, but are there round trips happening where you're going to get approval or you're going to do whatever the thing is? It's not just for approval processes, but you're going to go X, Y, and Z. And the employee is having to be sent back to the front lines to go do whatever, okay? That's a wasted trip, and there's also a switching cost. Do you understand? The switching cost, and my friend Quentin in Telemagic did the best job under helping me understand switching costs because he was a rep. He told me what he was going through by having to go readdress things. So try to avoid switching costs with your employees as much as possible. And listen, it's like, and Beastmode is not going to let you off the hook, okay? Just because you're not a manager, and I'm going to go ... and I'm going to flip it over to him because I talked too long, and he can finish that. It's one of his famous thoughts.
Yeah, just because you're not a manager doesn't mean you don't have input or skin in the game or value. So, and doesn't mean that you're not able to provide feedback. So, what I was thinking whenever you were talking is because you were new to that group or to that, it provided you the opportunity to see that I don't want to do this. And maybe some of that is cultural and I'll just use in Telemagic. Maybe that's just cultural. Hey, this is the way we do business and that's okay. And somebody's got to come in here and say, there's a better way to do this. And it's a pain point for you. And so you stepped up to fix it. And so there's a little bit of an empowerment that can and should happen. Hey, if anybody sees something like this, bring it to our attention.
Come on. Wow, that's good. It's interesting because I was at the TSA, I went through the security 3 years ago, whatever it was. And there was a bundle out it was outside of security. Okay. So technically it could have been a bomb. Got it?
Yeah.
So I wasn't about to touch that, but I went back to the TSA agent and I actually went to the box, the supervisor box. I actually went to the box and he was like, listen, I'm sorry. We only have jurisdiction inside of here. And I'm just like, that's not an empower thing. You are the TSA. You have more empowerment than I do. You at least know the number to law enforcement. that's not an acceptable answer, right? And so I think that's what we do is we kind of look at sometimes, like it's just like you said, it might be cultural, they might be used to it, whatever it might be. They may not see the issue, but then it's just like you challenged the listeners, which is that if you see something, then why don't you make a difference? You know, you just said that's one of your famous things on the show, that if you're not a manager, you still have empowerment where you can take responsibility. Why else are we here?
Yeah.
Are you seriously just going to earn a check? Make a difference.
Yeah. Become a manager by,
oh, come on. Come on.
By empowering yourself to step up. Now, I will say that feedback should be for the hope of for the betterment of the problem. So it's not feedback to say, here's a problem, this sucks, just letting you know. No, it should be, hey, here's a problem, let's workshop this. Here's a solution I thought of. You know, oh man, there's a quote I'll think of here in a second about every even when you're coming out an individual to let the individual know, hey, here's an area that you need to be coached on. The coaching needs to be with the sole purpose of making that individual better. So if there's a problem, I'm bringing something about the problem to make the problem go away. If I'm not doing that, then I don't need to bring it up.
It's great. Love it. Love it. Yeah, have an answer. I mean, you know, as a sales leader myself, you know, I don't get a lot of value. I get a little bit of value if you just bring me a problem. Some people don't even want that. Actually, I will say, so I remember when Lindy would come in my office and like you said, we would kind of workshop. It's not like every time she had the solution, but you know, it is nice if you can bring the solution as well. But it actually is a value to me if you just bring me the problem. In spite of the fact that culturally you're supposed to always bring a solution too. If you don't have one, be honest about it, be humble about it. But I totally agree. And I want to park on something Beastmode said, and you guys heard me get excited about it. I became a manager initially too many years ago. I'm not telling you, because I was helping my fellow team members. I ended up having, and I'm a salesperson. I'm an inside salesperson, actually. And I ended up having people outside of my cube. Sometimes I can't get on the phone. So I got people outside of my cube in a line, 1 or 2 deep, because I had become known for helping people. And so, you can have this, and basically when it came time to become a manager, it was kind of obvious who should the manager be. And I didn't even know that. Like Beastmode has given you guys not only a practical idea, which is why don't you become the manager by being the most helpful, guardian of process and the most helpful helper who doesn't walk by issues, but actually tries to fix things, Totally agree. And that worked for me. I didn't know it at the time, but it was one of a couple, 2 or 3 things that were pretty helpful to me in my first promotion. So I could not agree more. I want to unpack some more. How can we identify the symptoms of business pains so that we can actually fix them? Yeah. Right. So far we talked a little bit about an employee. You kind of mentioned, an employee coming to us. Hopefully they try to have a solution as well. But employee, to me, that's a great channel for feedback. What about on the web? I mean, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of sites now that kind of talk about you as a business. I mean, what have you seen, in terms of people leveraging web feedback?
Yeah, there's a lot of products, services out there that'll basically pull feedback for you and present it to you. Which, I mean, that's really helpful because sometimes you don't know where everybody's posting content about you. Now I did have a thought as you were bringing this up. And sometimes it's, how do we even know that something is a problem, right? Because some things we don't know. We don't assign it as a problem. We may say, there may be bigger fish to fry over here, as they say. And so I'm not going to label this as a problem. If there's an urge to just sweep it off the table, to cover it, it's a problem.
Okay.
It may mean you don't want to address it, but it should still be labeled as a problem. Maybe priority level to me isn't high, but to somebody it could be very high.
Wow. So true. So there's a moment of and what Beastmode is talking about is tapping into emotional intelligence. And so that's a topic that in sales and marketing, especially, and I think in HR, as well as senior executive ranks, EQ or emotional intelligence is actually a very popular topic right now. There's an author by the name of Daniel Kahneman that you can follow him on LinkedIn, and you'll see occasionally things from him. He has a book. He's kind of one of the ones that kind of made it famous initially. But yeah, I think if tapping into that emotional intelligence, like Beastmode is talking about, would be a very powerful thing for you to do.
Yeah, I mean, we do it all the time outside of business. You do it if you're trying to lose weight and you have that urge to go eat dessert, and you say, okay, I'm going to shift my focus. I'm going to go do this, or maybe I'm fasting TV and I'm getting the urge to, so I'm going to go do this. It's no different. Apply it to business. I have the urge to sweep this under the rug. In that moment, I need to hold myself accountable, and whatever I want to sweep under the rug, I need to email it to a colleague. I'm thinking about sweeping this under the rug. Can you hold me accountable, and let's talk about it?
So being self-aware that you are avoiding something, that you won't look at it, and you're sweeping it under the rug, that's probably something you should deal with. That's so good. Jordan B. Peterson talks about that too. In fact, he talks about addressing you like my Starbucks stopper? Addressing the dragon while it's under the carpet, right? And so what that means is essentially addressing the small dragon by looking at it and by pulling the carpet back and handling it when it's a small issue, because those things can grow. And also, by the way, think about this. The habit, this is worse, okay? There's the little dragon itself, but then there's also the habit that you're creating if you're getting used to not looking at issues. That's more systemic, right? That's why Jordan B. Peterson also talks about, if you lie as a person, he said, tell the truth or at least don't lie. If you lie as a person, you're actually programming yourself in a way that is not truthful. So the thing that's supposed to be giving you judgment in your life or in your business, you're actually corrupting by lying. So it's this very similar pattern that Beastmode has touched on here, which is if you look at that issue instead of sweeping it under the rug, then now you're the kind of person who addresses issues that would normally be swept under a rug, right? That'll start, and Beastmode talked about how things travel. That'll travel to your marriage. That'll travel to your nonprofit. That'll travel to the way you handle your kids, right? Versus if you deprogram yourself to be the kind of person who addresses things that normally get swept under a rug. If you deprogram or you reprogram yourself by ignoring issues, unfortunately that'll travel to other areas of your life. So there's this massive, multiplication that it'll have across your life if you start addressing problems.
Yeah. And I can't remember who said this. I want to say it's, I don't want to say the wrong person, but in my business, I don't necessarily want people who solve problems, right? And it sounds silly, like, yeah, of course you do. There's a whole cultural thing that, go look at LinkedIn profiles. People say chief problem solver and all kinds of stuff. And that's great. I'm glad that you're solving a problem that I can see, but I would rather you fix a problem I can't. I'd rather you fix a problem before it becomes a problem. That person has so much value.
Not me. I like to take credit for it. I want to get credit.
You want it to become a full-blown problem?
I want it to be a full-blown problem, and then I'll come in and rescue the situation.
No, not as a business owner. I don't want that.
I really don't. I want to solve it when it's small, for sure.
Yeah, well, I don't want the IRS knocking on my door and then me calling a tax professional to say, help get me out of this.
Yeah, right.
I want to solve the tax issue before it becomes a tax issue, and I never have to deal with the problem.
Yeah,
it's going to save me time, effort, energy, all of it.
It's good. All right, so that was really good stuff that we got into, traveling, programming, and all kinds of great stuff there. But I want to get back to how do we identify the symptoms?
Yeah. And
so we talked about one of them is that employees come to you. Another one is that which you just brought up, that it's something that you're avoiding. You don't want to look at it. You're trying to sweep it under there. You're trying to walk past it. I talked about how if you have a process where an employee is having to ask for approval, questioning really, do they have to ask approval for that? For sure. Like, can you not delegate that down? I also talked about how if something goes back into a loop and it requires another human touch, why can't we have that be a one pass thing instead of like, for example, that process document that I came up with. So that's I'm kind of out for what we talked about the web. So whether it be Yelp, Google reviews, in the business world, it could be Glassdoor, it could be Capterra, it could be G2 Crowd. All of those are good, whether you're a B2C or B2B. The B2B ones are usually Glassdoor, Capterra, and G2 Crowd. And those will give you a perspective of culture as well as the product quality. And so you can go read your critiques. There's a company I'm interviewing right now with that does dealer management, DMS software, dealer management software for automotives. And it's pretty cool, actually. But they have a couple of negative comments on their Capterra. And so I am very interested in, are they working on those two issues that I read about? Because most of the issues, most of the comments were pretty positive. But how am I going to, know there's a dragon under the rug if I don't go review sites that exist, that speak about my product? Same thing with Amazon reviews. If you're selling a product on Amazon and you're getting 3 stars, something is dreadfully wrong with that product. So you better go read every single one of those reviews and find out what's wrong. So I think that's a nice external way, from the web of just, having, and I know there's tools like you said that do, and by the way, that's in case you guys are in a big company, those kinds of tools are called social listening tools. They're not cheap, but they're there. If you're a bigger company, it's worth it. And most big companies will check those out for sure. What are some other ways we can become, aware of business problems that we can then turn into a net positive?
I'm actually going to spin it and give you an example of an empower up and empower down. And so Walt Disney, at their locations, they have an empower up and empower down motto, and it's also a culture of business. And so everyone, if you've ever been to Disney, everyone is a custodial engineer, and it's an empowerment down the chain. So it doesn't matter who it is, CEOs, VPs, if there's trash, they're picking it up, they're empowering down, showing you that we're starting at the top and we're working our way down, so that whenever I'm presenting an issue and I'm asking for feedback, it then is empowered back up the chain. So it's one way to get it, but it's also one way to receive some of that, like we were talking about.
Well, I think it's really powerful because if they are willing to go to that level, if a VP is walking through the Magic Kingdom at Disney World and, they are picking up trash, or they're checking on an employee who's, maybe they're helping a struggling employee who can't lift something, or who knows the situation, but by being present and by being, the real life version of social listening, by being physically present like that, that can be a great source of radar to problems as well. I mean, think about this right now. He goes up and he helps that employee who's struggling with that burden, right? Maybe the way the vendor has sized that resupply product is breaking OSHA codes, and it's greater than 50 pounds, and it will cause, if they have an injury, they can be sued from that, right? But you only get that because you're on the floor, or in this case, literally on the parks, and you're watching that happen, picking up trash, observing behavior and struggles of employees. So you're becoming your own feedback. So I think what you've taught us was really, really valuable by empowering down and by empowering up, is that you have to get out of your office. You have to do that sweep.
Yeah. You want to switch over to a different issue, or what do you want to do?
Yeah.
love the roundtable. So check that out. We'll be in touch.